I remember the smell of diner coffee and burnt toast, a comforting routine that abruptly shattered one night as I settled into my favorite armchair, ready to dive into an old film. The flickering of my laptop screen pulled me back from nostalgia, its glow illuminating the dim room. I squinted at the notifications that danced across the display. My heart hammered against my ribs as I saw the 116 profile materialize in bold letters, a name that sent a chill coursing through me. Then, the familiar family photo loaded, but my own face was obscured by a digital smear. Panic surged within me. "Michael, Brandon, Ashley, are you seeing this?" I whispered into the silent phone, my voice barely rising above the hum of the refrigerator. Each word felt heavy with dread as I waited for their responses. But deep down, I already knew their answer: nothing. They were probably too engrossed in their own lives, or maybe even oblivious to the dark undercurrents swirling around me. A cold sweat slicked my palms as that familiar dread crept back in. Images of the isolated forest invaded my thoughts. It had been a few years since our last venture into Gifford Pinchot National Forest, yet that place still haunted me like an unfinished chapter in a book. Memories of laughter mixed with whispers of unease flooded my mind. I felt as if something sinister awaited me among those ancient trees. It made my skin crawl. I stood abruptly, needing to escape the confines of my home. The walls felt like they were closing in on me. The sensation gripped my chest tighter than ever before. It was almost suffocating. With resolute determination, I grabbed my jacket and slipped on my boots without hesitation. The thought of revisiting that forsaken place filled me with both fear and a strange sense of duty. I knew, with chilling certainty, that I had to go back. It felt like a debt owed not just to myself but perhaps to those lost fragments of time. As I navigated through the winding roads leading back to Gifford Pinchot, memories clashed against reality in a cacophony of emotions, laughter from past adventures battling shadows from something darker lurking beneath the surface. The trees rose tall and imposing on either side, cloaking the road in an eerie twilight that set my teeth on edge. My hands tightened around the steering wheel. I needed to focus. I parked near our old trailhead and stepped outside. The air was thick with humidity and an unfamiliar tension clung to every breath I took. The forest looked different now, more alive yet somehow more menacing than before. As I walked along the path we had once traveled together, every rustle and snap of twigs beneath foot echoed eerily against the silence. Each step forward carried weight. It was as if I was trudging through layers of unspoken fears and unresolved memories wrapped around me like a suffocating blanket. My pulse quickened when flashes of laughter danced through my mind's eye, then darkness loomed like an unwelcome guest ready to intrude on cherished moments. At that moment, something caught my attention, a glimmering object half buried under fallen leaves along the trail's edge. Curiosity piqued, I knelt down for a closer look. My fingers brushed against cool metal. The rusty latch of an old toolbox emerged from obscurity like an artifact from another time. I felt compelled to pry it open despite reservations gnawing at me from within, the voices warning against disturbing whatever lay beneath this veneer of normalcy echoed louder now than ever before. With careful effort, I managed to lift the lid free. It creaked ominously as it opened wide enough for sunlight to spill inside. The contents brought forth remnants from lives once lived, scattered tools intertwined with faded photographs frozen in time, a snapshot revealing faces adorned with smiles now shrouded by mystery. A wave washed over me, an unsettling realization clawed at my gut. These lives had intersected with mine somehow. Suddenly aware of how alone I truly was out here amidst towering trees whispering secrets long forgotten, unease settled heavily around me like an unwanted cloak. What happened here? The question slipped past my lips unbidden, a mere echo lost amongst branches swaying gently overhead. Then came another sound. Footsteps crunching leaves behind me sent jolts racing up my spine. I turned sharply towards where they originated only to find empty air staring back at me mockingly. "Hello?" My voice trembled slightly, a feeble attempt at breaking this sudden tension wrapping tighter around us both as if nature itself conspired against any hope for solace today. Nothing answered except silence, but somehow it felt more potent than any words could convey, a palpable force bearing down on me, urging caution but pushing curiosity forward simultaneously. Determined not to let fear dictate this moment any longer, I shoved aside lingering doubts and began sorting through items strewn across that toolbox, finding things both mundane yet profoundly meaningful all at once, a compass pointing inward rather than towards physical directionality. But what did it really mean? Then something shifted within. Memories stirred so vividly they eclipsed everything else, laughter shared between friends echoing alongside shadows cast by those flickering bulbs deep inside that bunker we had discovered years ago. It ignited urgency and resolve alongside rising panic threatening further exploration. "Maybe we should leave," that voice inside murmured quietly, but stubbornness fought back fiercely against surrender. It called out for answers hidden beneath layers too thick for mere dust alone could hide them away forevermore. Now standing there amidst remnants echoing past choices made, and paths taken, I knew it was time for reconciliation, to face whatever specters lingered within those woods begging acknowledgement before they could finally rest undisturbed. I remember the smell of pine needles, damp earth, and something metallic as I drove deeper into the misty forests of rural Maine. The scent wrapped around me like a familiar blanket, yet it held an unsettling edge that made my stomach churn. My old beat-up truck bounced over the overgrown track, each jarring bump resonating through my bones like a drumbeat, amplifying my growing anxiety. The weight of Emily's unanswered calls pressed heavily on my conscience, my lie about a solo fishing trip tasting bitter in my mouth. Every time I saw her name flash on my screen, I felt a stab of guilt cutting through the fog of denial. As I navigated the winding path flanked by towering trees that seemed to watch my every move, I thought about how long it had been since I last set foot here. Memories from that summer 10 years ago spilled into my mind, laughter echoing off the cabin walls and late-night fires where we shared secrets and dreams. But those moments now felt tainted by shadows lurking in the corners of my memory. My heart raced faster with every mile, each twist in the road pulling me back to things left unresolved. When I finally saw the cabin, exactly as I'd left it all those years ago, a shiver ran down my spine. Time had just stopped here for it, which was both comforting and freaky. The wooden structure stood proud against the backdrop of looming pines, its paint weathered but somehow still vibrant. I parked and stepped out, feeling the crunch of gravel beneath my boots, a sound that echoed in the silence surrounding me. I hesitated for a moment, absorbing the familiar sights while an unfamiliar tension coursed through me. With each step toward the entrance, memories clashed against reality like two opposing forces. I reached for the doorknob but paused when I heard an unexpected hum emanating from behind the cabin. It pulled at me like a magnet, an insistent call beckoning me closer to something forbidden. My breath quickened as curiosity battled with caution. Part of me knew better than to investigate. As if in a trance, I walked around to find an old power box humming softly against the backdrop of rustling leaves. The sight sent chills racing down my spine. It should not have been there. Gripping the crowbar tightly in my hand, its cold steel providing little comfort, I approached with trepidation. A part of me whispered that opening this box might cross a line I shouldn't dare to tread. My pulse quickened as uncertainty swirled within me like a tempest. What could possibly lie inside? With trembling hands, I pried open the lid and peered inside at tangled wires flickering with life, a shocking contrast to everything else around me that felt frozen in time. It felt wrong yet tantalizingly right at that moment, electricity pulsed through me as if awakening dormant memories buried deep within. Then something shifted, the hum grew louder as if responding to my presence. Suddenly, images flooded back, conversations about secrets hidden away and whispers among friends about things best left unsaid. What had we stumbled upon back then? Questions rattled in my mind like loose change, each one more pressing than the last. Do you think anyone ever found out? My voice broke through the thick silence without warning, startling even myself. I looked around as though expecting an answer from somewhere within those trees or perhaps even from thin air itself, the absence of voices only amplifying the tension building inside me further. Shadows danced playfully along tree trunks while secrets lingered just out of reach, yet there was no one here but me now. I took a deep breath and stepped back from the power box, an instinctual retreat driven by unease, but curiosity kept pulling me forward again like an invisible thread woven into fate's fabric. Why did this place feel so alive? It was more than nostalgia or regret. There was something darker lurking beneath its surface, waiting patiently for an unsuspecting visitor to stumble upon it once more. As dusk began to settle in, the air thickening with anticipation, I noticed movement at the edge of my vision, branches swaying gently despite there being no wind stirring around us at all. Instinctively, I turned sharply toward where it came from but saw nothing out of place, except for maybe shadows gathering slightly thicker than before. At that moment, an overwhelming urge surged through me, adrenaline pumped fiercely in my veins, urging me forward into uncharted territory once more, only this time without hesitation or fear holding me back. With renewed determination coursing through every fiber of my being, I stepped away from everything familiar towards whatever lay ahead amidst these ancient trees, a step closer towards uncovering truths hidden for far too long. My footsteps echoed louder now against hollow ground, not merely a sound but rather calling forth memories long forgotten alongside buried fears resurfacing alongside tangled hopes mingled among roots reaching deep beneath soil yearning for light once more. As darkness enveloped everything around us, the sky above morphing into hues mixing twilight's palette, I realized this journey wasn't solely about confronting ghosts lingering from past mistakes, but rather discovering what lay ahead. Each heartbeat reverberated within growing urgency, urging clarity amidst chaos swirling around. What awaited beyond familiar boundaries? Secrets unraveling, slowly revealing untold stories demanding recognition after years lost within shadows cast across time itself. Inhale deeply, exhale slowly, for answers were coming whether ready or not. I remember the moment I stepped through that rusted door into the bunker. The air inside was thick with the scent of industrial lemon and ozone, a stark contrast to the damp pine needles I had just left behind. It felt surreal, as if I had entered another realm entirely. The walls gleamed in sterile white, an eerie brightness that made my skin prickle. I glanced back at my friends, their laughter fading into the distance, replaced by an oppressive silence that clung to me like a shroud. As I walked deeper into the belly of this metal beast, an unsettling sensation crept over me. My heart raced, each thud echoing off the walls as I turned a corner, revealing an endless corridor stretching before me. Panic flared within me when my foot slipped on something slick beneath it, a metal rung that gave way with a sickening crunch. I cried out as I tumbled downward into blinding light, my world spinning like a chaotic kaleidoscope. Landing hard on my shoulder sent shockwaves through me, dull pain radiating through my body. But worse than the physical ache was the realization of where I was, trapped in this sterile labyrinth with no clear exit in sight. I pressed myself against one of the cool, featureless walls, trying to catch my breath while fear constricted around my throat like a vice. Each heartbeat felt amplified as heavy footsteps began to echo down the corridor, rhythmic and deliberate, they were closing in on me. I fought against rising dread and forced myself to focus on what lay ahead. My mind raced through possibilities, who or what could be coming for me. My thoughts spiraled until a flicker of movement caught my eye through a narrow crack in the wall. I dared to peek through, and what met my gaze sent chills racing down my spine. A woman who looked exactly like Emily stood there, yet she seemed utterly devoid of warmth or compassion. Her eyes were vacant. It was as if her soul had been snuffed out. Just then, a tall figure emerged from the shadows beside her, its body wrapped in layers of bandages like some grotesque puppet from a twisted play. It clicked its tongue rhythmically, an unsettling sound that echoed like morbid applause in the hollow space around us. My breath hitched as panic surged anew. Every instinct screamed at me to flee from this nightmarish scene unfolding before me. Yet something held me captive against that wall. Fear paralyzed me. The bandaged figure turned toward Emily's doppelganger and whispered something too soft for me to hear but heavy with menace. My chest tightened as dread pooled in my stomach. It felt as though this place thrummed with dark energy that knew all our secrets. I wanted to scream for help or call out to Emily's likeness, anything, but no sound escaped my lips. With trembling hands and a racing pulse, I took a step back from the crack and tried to gather myself amidst confusion and terror swirling around like storm clouds ready to unleash chaos. But before I could retreat further into that cold labyrinthine space, a low hum resonated through the corridor, an insistent vibration that pulsed with life just beneath the surface. Against all rational thought urging caution, curiosity clawed at me again. Perhaps there was something vital hidden within this maze-like structure? With each heartbeat echoing in my ears, I found myself drawn deeper toward where that hum originated. The bright glow emanating from within an adjacent room beckoned like a siren's call. I approached slowly, every instinct warning against what lay ahead but unable to resist stepping closer. I needed answers. The door swung open without resistance. Inside was an array of bizarre technology glowing ominously under harsh fluorescent lights. Screens flickered erratically displaying images too distorted for comprehension. Wires snaked across surfaces cluttered with strange instruments resembling both tools and weapons. In disbelief, I stared at this surreal tableau, a sterile environment housing devices straight out of nightmares while remnants of humanity lingered faintly in its corners like ghosts refusing to let go. Just when clarity began to form amid confusion surrounding these objects, another noise broke through. The footsteps grew louder, now accompanied by whispers swirling around me like smoke. My heart thundered painfully in response. I could not remain here any longer. Torn between instinct and curiosity tearing at my mind like wild animals fighting for dominance over control, I took action. The only choice left was survival. Gripping an abandoned metal rod lying nearby tightly in hand for protection against whatever lurked beyond those doors rattling ominously under unseen pressure, I dashed back down the corridor, trying desperately not to look over my shoulder despite urging voices tempting doubt within every ounce of courage still left inside me. Would this be yet another ghost story forged from memories long past? Or would there be redemption hidden behind truths steeped deeply beneath layers filled with deceit? Suddenly an alarm blared throughout this hellish maze, sending jolts of panic coursing through veins already stretched taut. Every second counted now. Fleeing down hallways filled with uncertainty echoed by disembodied laughter tauntingly low yet unmistakably real, a chilling reminder that something sinister awaited just behind those walls, closing tighter around me as if they sought to swallow whole anyone daring enough tread within their confines. With adrenaline surging wildly through every fiber of being, driving forward relentlessly despite exhaustion clawing at limbs begging respite, each step resonating loudly against polished floors, reverberating echoes around corners where shadows danced menacingly close behind. A final push fueled by sheer desperation emerged, fiercely battling against impending darkness closing fast. At last, breathless and trembling but still alive, I burst free into daylight once more. Collapsing outside, gasping for air, stinging lungs filled initially with stale scents mingling, then replaced by fresh invigorating forest air, filled longing, nostalgia twisting, bittersweet memories forgotten, rushing back, flooding joy brought forth, tangled among fears faced today. Yet even among freedom's embrace, lurking shadows reminded unshakable truth: some doors once opened might never truly close again. I remember the cold grip of panic as I realized I was completely alone in this sterile expanse. The unsettling clicks and scrapes behind me echoed like a haunting countdown, each sound pulling me deeper into dread. My heart thundered against my ribcage, its rhythm racing alongside the chaos in my mind. I had to escape, there was no room for hesitation. With shaking fingers, I fumbled through the remnants of technology scattered across the walls. My thoughts scrambled back to that warped melody from years ago, the ice cream truck jingle that had echoed through the summer days of my childhood. A bizarre comfort enveloped me as I recalled its rhythm, each note a lifeline tethering me to sanity. I could almost hear those fragmented numbers dancing in my mind, desperate prayers pleading for clarity amidst this nightmare. As I moved further down the corridor, the flickering lights overhead cast eerie shadows that seemed to stretch and twist. Every step felt heavy, each second stretched thin by my growing dread. Glancing back, the corridor appeared endless, swallowed by darkness as if something sinister lurked just beyond my vision. Then it struck me, I needed a sequence to get out of here. With urgency igniting within me, I closed my eyes for a brief moment to focus. My breath quickened as images flashed, my friends and laughter swirling around us during those carefree days. But then came the numbers. They unfurled slowly, painfully at first, like an old film reel sputtering back to life. 2, 6. 4, 5, I whispered it under my breath, a mantra against the encroaching horror. I stumbled forward toward the keypad mounted on a wall in front of me, the only potential salvation in this maze of steel and shadows. My fingers trembled as I pressed each digit into place, every tap resonated like thunder through the silence that surrounded me. It felt like a gamble against whatever was pursuing me, every number entered was layered with fear and desperation. "Please work," I whispered urgently as sweat trickled down my brow. The final digit clicked into position with a satisfying beep that reverberated through the air before silence consumed it once more. The emergency door hissed open with alarming speed, red lights flashing violently in contrast to the dimness around me. A rush of adrenaline propelled me forward as I burst through the door into blinding light, a stark change from the oppressive gloom of the bunker behind me. The forest welcomed me back with its vibrant greens and earthy scents, yet unease settled over me like an unwelcome fog. This was supposed to be safety, but it felt more like stepping from one cage into another. I turned quickly, glancing back at the emergency door slamming shut behind me just as footsteps thundered down the corridor within, loud and frantic. Those sounds were all too familiar. They echoed through both time and space like a twisted symphony heralding something terrible. But then my eyes widened at what came next, figures emerging from the bunker's entrance, Michael, Brandon, Ashley. But then something strange caught my attention. I saw myself standing at the edge of the woods. A sense of confusion washed over me as disbelief etched itself onto my features. Is this some kind of trick? My voice trembled while fear knotted tightly in my stomach. "Come on!" Michael shouted urgently from inside the bunker, his tone laced with desperation that felt eerily familiar yet distorted. "We don't have much time." In that moment, everything collided, the past merged with reality in an explosive revelation that left no room for doubt. We were trapped in some twisted loop where time intertwined with our memories and fears. Before I could process fully what was happening or how this could even be possible, Brandon stepped closer to where I stood frozen near trees thick with shadows that danced around us like phantoms. "Are you okay?" he asked cautiously while concern flashed across his face. I think so. My voice cracked slightly as uncertainty gripped me tighter than ever before. What's going on? Why are we? The words died on my lips when suddenly Ashley interjected sharply from behind them, her expression unreadable yet intense. We need to get out. They're coming. I turned again toward the bunker instinctively. Those haunting clicks began echoing once more, as if whatever had chased us was closing in on our last chance for survival. Without thinking further, pure instinct driving every move, I dashed toward Michael and Brandon while glancing over my shoulder at myself still standing there, lost between worlds yet somehow tethered by everything we had endured together before splintering apart into this madness. As we fled deeper into the forest's embrace, where sunlight broke through branches overhead, I could almost hear whispers mingling with laughter lingering in memories long past, fragments of our lives woven together now feeling achingly distant amid this chaos, a tapestry unraveled by fear and uncertainty. But one thing remained clear: we needed to confront whatever lay ahead, to reclaim our power over our fates instead of succumbing to darkness lurking just beyond sight, or risk becoming lost forever within its grip. And so we ran, together again, but changed irrevocably by what awaited us ahead. I remember the moment I stepped into that dingy motel room, its musty air wrapping around me like an unwelcome embrace. The flickering light above cast shadows on the peeling wallpaper, and I sank onto the bed, my mind still racing from the chaos of the bunker. As I turned on the television, a sense of dread settled in my stomach. The local news flickered to life, its anchor's voice crisp but heavy with urgency. My coffee sat neglected on the table, growing cold as I became transfixed by the scrolling text at the bottom of the screen. Missing persons. My heart dropped when a familiar face flashed across the screen, a man who looked exactly like Michael. My breath hitched as another image followed, Brandon's bright smile, almost too wide, too perfect for comfort. No way, I muttered under my breath, panic clawing at my throat. How could this be happening? This felt surreal, like a nightmare from which I couldn't wake up. I stood abruptly and paced back and forth in that cramped space, my mind racing with thoughts of how these men had vanished without a trace. As each name was read aloud, my stomach lurched with each new revelation. It felt like a cruel twist of fate that I had ventured here under such false pretenses. In that moment of turmoil, my gaze landed on a small package resting on the nightstand. Its edges were worn and unmarked except for Emily's name scrawled across it in familiar handwriting. Curiosity tugged at me as I approached it cautiously. Unwrapping it revealed a charm bracelet, the one I had given her years ago. But something was off. One of the charms was distinctly new, glimmering ominously under the dull light. It bore an unfamiliar symbol etched deep into its surface, something dark and foreboding. My heart raced as I clutched it tightly in my palm. What did this mean? Emily, I whispered her name as if calling her would somehow explain everything that was unfolding around me. Each breath felt heavier than before. I could barely process what lay before me. The horror wasn't confined to that bunker, it had already seeped into my world. Suddenly, my phone rang, shattering the suffocating silence around me. Seeing Emily's name flash across the screen sent a wave of hope crashing over me, but when I answered with a shaky, "Hello," dread washed over me anew as I heard my own voice echoing back from the other end of the line. "Hello, John." The tone was identical to mine, perfectly mimicking every inflection and rise of emotion. A chill raced down my spine as confusion morphed into primal fear. How could anyone replicate my voice so flawlessly? No. This can't be happening. My voice trembled as I slammed down the phone in disbelief. Panic surged within me like fire raging out of control. The walls seemed to close in around me as darkness threatened to swallow everything whole. I rushed to the window and yanked it open, desperate for fresh air to clear my racing thoughts. The cool breeze whipped against my face but brought little solace. It served only to heighten my senses and deepen my anxiety as shadows danced outside under flickering streetlights. Then came another sound, a soft knock at the door that froze me in place. My heart pounded violently against my ribcage as dread washed over me anew. Who could be knocking at this hour? Was it someone coming for me? Or was it something worse? I took slow steps toward the door, each creak of floorboards amplifying my unease until every beat echoed ominously in silence. My hands trembled against the doorknob as uncertainty swirled within me like a storm cloud ready to burst. "John?" A voice emerged from beyond, a voice that was hauntingly familiar yet distant enough to send chills down my spine, my own voice again but layered with something sinister. "Stay away!" I shouted through gritted teeth, trying to muster strength against whatever lay beyond that barrier between safety and chaos. The knocking stopped abruptly, replaced by an eerie stillness that filled every corner of that dim room. My pulse quickened while tension clung thickly in the air, adrenaline coursed through me as if igniting every nerve ending in my body. I backed away slowly from the door, unsure whether to flee or stay put, my mind racing through scenarios both terrifying and absurd until a sudden crash shattered any remaining peace within those four walls. The door flew open with force so unexpected that it rattled pictures hanging crookedly on their nails and sent a wave of debris cascading across cold tiles at my feet. When I looked up again, there stood myself. No, not really. I could see subtle differences, eyes too wide with delight bordering on madness, an unsettling grin stretched unnaturally across its face. "Surprise!" the figure exclaimed cheerfully, the words dripping honeyed malice, and just like that, reality twisted into nightmare once more. My heart raced uncontrollably while darkness pooled inside, as if all hope had been extinguished by this grotesque parody standing before me now, a reflection twisted beyond recognition yet undeniably familiar. I remember sitting in the small diner, the clatter of dishes and the hum of conversation swirling around me, yet I felt utterly alone. Each stranger who passed my table seemed like a potential them, their casual glances heavy and scrutinizing, making me jumpy. I could almost hear my heart racing in time with the busy rhythms of the place. The waitress brought over my coffee, but I barely noticed the steaming cup as I stared into the greasy window beside me. My reflection looked back, a man I barely recognized, hollowed by fear and guilt for abandoning my friends and lying to Emily. As I sipped the bitter brew, I scrolled through old photos on my laptop, desperately searching for any signs in Emily's eyes or even Emma's, a flicker of that unsettling emptiness that haunted me since the bunker. My hands trembled as they moved across the keyboard, clicking through memories now tainted by a creeping dread. The laughter frozen in those snapshots felt distant, like echoes from another life, one where happiness didn't feel like an illusion. "This is freaky, for real," I whispered to myself when an image of Emily appeared on the screen. It was a local news clip showing her at a community event, her smile radiant but somehow wrong, too perfect against the backdrop of my disarrayed mind. My gut twisted with anxiety as her laughter echoed in my ears like a haunting melody that wouldn't let me rest. The truth weighed heavily on me, confronting this new version of Emily at home gnawed at my insides like acid. What if she wasn't even her anymore? What if she had become something sinister? My stomach turned with this moral debt pressing down on me, leaving me utterly paralyzed. After hours lost in thought and paranoia at that diner table, I decided to leave. The world outside felt surreal. Shadows stretched across sidewalks under flickering streetlights while dusk settled around me like a thick fog. Each step toward my car felt laden with dread, every passing face seemed to regard me with suspicion. I drove aimlessly through town, my mind racing as memories flooded back, flashes of laughter shared over dinner tables and Emma's bright smile lighting up our home. But those memories were tainted now, they whispered secrets that twisted deeper into my consciousness with every mile traveled. I thought about how Emily would react when she saw the bracelet I found earlier, the new charm glinting ominously under dim light, and it sent shivers down my spine. My fingers gripped the steering wheel tightly as I pulled into an empty parking lot beside a crumbling gas station, its neon sign buzzing erratically above me. The stillness was deafening, it suffocated any sense of safety lingering in my chest. There was no hiding from what lurked behind closed doors or just beyond my line of vision. I needed answers before facing whatever awaited me back home. I stepped out into the cool night air, inhaling deeply while scanning the parking lot for any signs of life, anyone who could lend clarity to this growing nightmare. But all I saw were shadows dancing beneath flickering lights and an overwhelming silence that enveloped everything around me. Then suddenly, a car pulled up beside mine, a beat-up sedan with tinted windows that rolled down slowly to reveal two men inside. They looked familiar but disjointed, their gazes pierced through me like arrows aimed straight at my heart. "Hey there," one called out casually as if we were long-lost friends rather than strangers caught in this strange game of fate. "You all right?" My throat tightened at their approach, something about their smiles set off alarm bells within me. "Yeah, just taking a break," I managed to reply, instinctively stepping back toward my vehicle. "We've been looking for you." The other man leaned forward slightly, eyes narrowing as he continued speaking in an almost conspiratorial tone. "We know what happened last time." An icy wave washed over me. How could they know? Panic surged like wildfire through my veins, igniting a fight-or-flight response buried deep within me. "What do you want?" My voice shook as adrenaline coursed through my body. Urgency demanded action. "Just to talk," he replied with feigned innocence, though his demeanor suggested otherwise. I glanced at their car again. The dim interior revealed nothing except shadows lurking in corners where light couldn't reach. Fear clawed at me like nails scraping against wood. These men were not here by coincidence. "I think you should leave," I said firmly, but felt unsure whether it sounded convincing enough given how rapid-fire panic twisted each word before escaping from trembling lips. They exchanged knowing looks before laughing softly, the sound sickeningly jovial amidst this tension-laden atmosphere swirling between us. "Don't worry about it," one said dismissively before they both leaned back into their seats nonchalantly as if our conversation had never happened, like puppets returning to their strings after playing their parts. I stood frozen for what felt like eternity until finally breaking away from their gaze and retreating toward my truck without looking back again, a desperate escape from whatever dark corners awaited beyond those tinted windows. Once safely inside my vehicle once more, with breaths coming too fast, I slammed the door shut and gripped onto the steering wheel tightly enough to feel pain shoot through knuckles white from pressure building within them. The headlights illuminated only darkness beyond, the night holding secrets too heavy for words or understanding, but among them lay choices waiting for clarity amongst chaos twisting wildly inside of me. I couldn't shake off that encounter. It haunted each heartbeat, reverberating through silence surrounding everything outside again, while urging thoughts spiraled around unanswered questions begging resolution, like ghosts calling out from depths obscured behind thin veils separating reality from nightmare. In moments such as these, where tension crackled thickly between breaths taken, it became clear, I was trapped not merely within physical spaces but also within walls built upon lies. And perhaps soon enough those walls would come crashing down around me too. I remember staring at my face in the grimy motel bathroom mirror, searching for something familiar. The harsh fluorescent light flickered above me, casting an unflattering glow that revealed the shadows etched under my eyes and the stubble on my cheeks. Each imperfection felt magnified, as if I were staring at a stranger instead of myself. My heart raced with each passing second, and I couldn't shake the feeling that whoever stood before me was a mere copy, an echo of who I used to be. Every thought of Emily and Emma pulled at my heartstrings, reminding me that my only option seemed to be running forever, vanishing into the wilderness like smoke. But the thought of them, if they were even still them, kept me rooted in place. Could I really abandon them? Who am I now? I asked the reflection, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. Each syllable dripped with uncertainty, amplifying doubts that consumed me. Was the original version of me even capable of making choices anymore? A map of Maine lay spread out on the bed behind me, a network of isolated roads winding through dense forests that felt both inviting and foreboding. I traced a path with my finger, envisioning a desperate escape plan forming in my mind as dread settled heavily in my stomach. Each line represented potential freedom but also uncertainty about what lay ahead. Would it truly lead to safety or deeper into darkness? Suddenly, an idea sparked within me, a flicker of determination that shot through the haze clouding my thoughts. I grabbed my old flip phone from my pocket, feeling its weight like a stone in my hand. It was a relic from another time, a time before everything spiraled out of control, but it felt safer than using my main phone. With deliberate movements, I began to type a message, a warning or perhaps an explanation for whoever might someday find it. "My name is John," I typed slowly, each letter sent tingling through my fingers as dread twisted tighter around my chest. "If you find this, please know that things are not what they seem." My heart raced as memories flooded back, the laughter shared over dinners, Emma's innocent giggles echoing through our home, and how those moments now felt tainted by lies. I paused for a moment to gather my thoughts before continuing. "Emily is not herself, she's changed." The words poured out with desperation, feeling both like a confession and a plea for understanding, a tether thrown into chaos to hold on to. As I finished typing, unease crept back into my mind. Would this message ever reach someone who could help? Or would it simply vanish into oblivion like so many fragments of truth lost amid shadows? Suddenly, I heard a noise coming from outside the motel room, soft footsteps approaching along the creaking floorboards in the hallway beyond. My body tensed instinctively, fear gripped me tightly as adrenaline surged through my veins once again. The stillness around me throbbed with anticipation. I could almost hear each beat of my heart echoing against silence thickening between breaths taken too quickly. I slipped the flip phone beneath the mattress and moved closer to the door, pressing myself against its cold surface to listen intently for any signs of who or what awaited outside. Every rustle sent shivers down my spine, dread gnawed at me like a hungry wolf prowling just out of sight. Then came another sound, knocking followed by muffled voices whispering just outside, words laden with urgency yet tangled in mystery that left me questioning their intentions. "John," a voice broke through, the familiar lilt washing over me, but it twisted unnaturally in pitch and tone until it no longer resembled anything close to comfort. My breath caught as I recognized it. It was Emily's voice but warped by something sinister lurking beneath her words. "Open up," she urged softly yet insistently. Something about her tone made every hair on end stand straight up. I swallowed hard. Fear mixed with confusion paralyzed me momentarily while every instinct screamed at me to flee or confront whatever lay waiting just beyond that threshold separating safety from danger. "I know you're in there," she pressed again. This time her urgency sharpened into something more frantic than pleading, and suddenly all semblance of reality began unraveling around me like threads pulled taut until they snapped under pressure. My mind raced frantically with possibilities. Was this truly Emily? Or had whatever darkness had taken root inside her turned her into something else entirely? With no clear answer surfacing amidst rising tension threatening to burst forth violently from within, every breath fueled only by uncertainty, I backed away from the door slowly until hitting against cold tiles behind me where panic surged anew after hearing another knock follow immediately after. Echoes reverberating within confined space wrapped tightly around trembling breaths escaping lips barely parted now against mounting dread clawing up toward throat raw from fear. "Please," came her voice again, stronger yet somehow tinged with desperation that echoed throughout every corner surrounding all remaining air left trapped between us, and for one fleeting moment amidst chaos swirling within endless thoughts racing ahead faster than time itself, I hesitated before reaching toward doorknob once more. But just then, the world outside erupted into disarray as another loud crash rang out, wood splintered violently against walls resounding loudly enough to drown out everything else surrounding us both. Without thinking further, I lunged forward towards door itself throwing all caution aside, as if breaking free meant reclaiming pieces lost long ago buried deep beneath layers deceitful whispers weaving darker threads around truths obscured beneath surface until finally breaking loose through open door wide revealing what awaited beyond. What stood there, my heart plunged downward sharply like stone cast away upon icy water, was not Emily but instead, another reflection staring back full-on twisted smile stretching far too wide across its face with eyes alight burning bright hellfire illuminating depths obscured beyond shadowed corners nestled comfortably between fractured realities colliding headlong within haunted echoes reverberating endlessly between realms once thought safe.